Hello, welcome to SquishiVision, where I'm going to give my thoughts on Chapter 5, the Book of Boba Fett. This episode is called Return of the Mandalorian, and essentially what someone's done is that they've basically snuck in an episode of Mandalorian into the Boba Fett show, and Boba Fett doesn't even appear in this entire thing. Before I watched the episode, because I watched it just now, and it's been out for like 24 hours or something, or like 20 hours, I saw a bunch of comments by multiple people, including nostalgia critics, saying that A, this is the episode doesn't have Boba Fett in it, and B, this is one of the better episodes of the series, and I think both of those things are, well, the first one's certainly true, even though Tamara Morrison still gets lead credit, which is fine. But also, yeah, I think arguably it's probably the most. To be fair, it's just I think the thing is maybe maybe not necessarily better, but it's an episode of The Mandalorian. Like, there's no two ways about it. It's an episode of The Mandalorian. It's structured the same way. It has the. There's the same creative team both ways, so it feels like an episode of The Mandalorian. So I guess that's more what we're used to. It's more where the success lies. So I guess it feels that kind of way. Yeah. So well, it's better, but it's not necessarily a very good Book of Boba Fett episode. It's just an episode of The Mandalorian. Also, I know we live in this world now of interconnectivity with narratives, and that's like an expected thing. Just hold on one second. So I know that's like an expected thing that, well, more so than it used to be that, your narratives aren't necessarily restricted to one show, but it's still not completely unexpected. Like, it's not like you still expect to be able to watch one show and have a complete narrative. Like, that's just conventions of storytelling. So pretty bold for, Lucasfilm to continue the narrative of one of their most successful properties, because Mandalorian is, like, in terms of wide-reaching approval, should I say? Yeah, not giving any kind of, I guess, not to give like any degree of support to people who don't like certain parts of Star Wars, but this is probably the one that's unanimously the most kind of enjoyed. So it's bold to kind of continue that important spreads of that narrative in a completely different show, and it's not even like like, it's one thing to like have an episode of the Book of Boba Fett, and you can see the narratives of the show in there, but it's like kind of A-line, B-line kind of stuff. Like, Buffy and Angel used to do it all the time, but they did continue certain narrative points in the other show, and sometimes it was important plot points that you need to kind of watch to understand the other show. But it was always like kind of A plot, B plot kind of thing. This is like an entire show focused on the main character of the show was the Mandalorian, was Din Djarin. So that's a pretty like bold move. Gotta give him credit for that, and a whole bunch of other things as well. And the answer, I hope, I think that's actually really, really hilarious. I was thinking last week as the flashbacks were kind of reaching the point of the flashbacks catching up to where we saw Boba Fett in season 2 of The Mandalorian, and I was like, I wonder if they're going to continue, if they're going to overlap a bit, and we see a bit of Boba Fett tracking down Mandalorian from Boba Fett's perspective, and maybe they throw a small cameo in with Din Djarin. It might not be played by Pedro Pascal, it might just be someone in the same outfit. Or it might be played by him, who knows? I was like, that might be a thing they do. But then I was like, I remember last week came to the conclusion that we probably come to the end of the flashback sequences. So I was like, a shame, we'll probably won't see Mandalorian in this show. And then we get an episode, which is literally The Mandalorian, Season 3, Episode 0. And it answers a whole bunch of questions which I was wondering from. It did two things actually. It answers a whole bunch of questions that I was wondering what happened after the end of last season, but also it kind of. It's weird. I don't know if when we go back to Season 3 of Mandalorian, if we're going to backtrack slightly and pick up from that scene at the end of we're all standing on the bridge of the ship after Luke takes Grogu away, because you kind of think that they should in, don't you? Like, there's a whole bunch of questions like, you know, how does Bo-Katan handle the fact that he has the Darksaber? Does she try to challenge him for it, but in bed? Does she just accept it? You know, what do they say? Does he have like kind of like a whole like what happens after that point? It's very awkward. Like, there's a lot of like awkward standoff nature stuff happening, and not really any, I guess, conclusion. And I was wondering where that's going to happen. And obviously, we come to the book of Boba Fett, which is a time jump. Like, clearly at some point, he picked up Fennec Shand and went to Tatooine. But I always assumed we'd kind of backtrack. But now we get this episode of Mandalorian, which is set clearly sometime afterwards. And, well, he still has a Darksaber, so clearly Bo-Katan cries, let him leave with it. And it seems like he's just gone back to his kind of original kind of goal of trying to find his, what do they call it now, his clan, his whatever. And so we even finished one of his kind of character motivations from the show. He finds his clan, you know, gets caught up on what's happened to them, gets some extra story about the Darksaber. I mean, I don't think we see his characters for the entirety of season 2 of Mandalorian. And I was like, what? How is he gonna react if someone asks him about his helmet? And that happens in this, and I was like, oh my god! And I was like scared of that question because I didn't know how he was gonna respond in such an awkward situation to play in. And like, I didn't know what they would do. At no point did they kind of explain what the ramifications were if you took off your helmet. And you know, she was like, Din Djarin, have you ever taken off your helmet? And he's like, you can see that he was like trying to think of a way to soften the blow. I don't know if he maybe should have explained why he took it off, and maybe this in some mitigating circumstances he didn't know about in the way. But nope, apparently he's not, and you know they've banished him, and now he has to go redeem himself if he wants to come back to the clan. Although he's still allowed to keep his Darksaber. I also like how he's built screenplay. He seems like more clumsy in the beginning of this episode, but that, I think it's explained later on about the fact that the Darksaber feels heavy if you're not used to it, which is actually consistent with how we see it explained in Star Wars Rebels. So that's a nice connection. But it's kind of a bit humorous, I guess, that, you know, he goes in all kind of cool and like, you know, I can take you in warm, I can cold, this whole catchphrase kind of deal. This whole catchphrase, probably for the first time in like ages, I gather. And then he ends up stabbing himself in the leg. So, whoosh, I guess. He also seems much more angry and graphic. Like, he full on, like, just decapitates a dude and just cuts his body in half. I mean, 2 dudes, but cuts another person in half, so. But yeah, and I mean, they reintroduced him, like, amazingly. Like, it was literally, like, we see the figure of a man, you know, of some of the Mandalorian armor behind plastic curtains. We're like, oh, this might be Boba Fett, but actually his arm looks a bit off, and he walks through and it's Din Djarin, and his theme plays, throughout this episode. In fact, if anything, they should put his theme in the closing credits. There's no way about it. This is an episode of The Mandalorian. Like, it's completely, like, if you put The Mandalorian opening titles on and the Mandalorian theme track at the end, you'd have no idea it was actually episode 5 of the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, you could say this is them not having much faith in the character, but this was obviously shot before the reviews, so it's like, it's a weird kind of move to make. I also get some nice kind of flashbacks to the annihilation of Mandalore. And it's nice. It's great to see like planets that we've only really seen in animated remade in live action format. And I like the K2. I think K2 droids basically going around executing dying Mandalorians. That's kind of dark. And this whole thing is like Apocalypse Now. I mean, I've never seen Apocalypse Now, so I don't know if that's an accurate. Sorry, I was eating my chicken burger and it's clearly reacting to me. I don't know if that's an accurate comparison, but certainly very apocalyptic. and you can feel that kind of like, yeah, that would make sense. It's great to see the armor back after like the whole season of absence, and like portrayed the same way with the same kind of sage wisdom. And I love the kind of all kind of, even though, you know, Vizsla kind of made amends with Mandalorian and saved his life, he's still got beef against him and like feels threatened by him clearly. So that was a cute moment. I like the moment between him and the kid as well. Oh, and like a lot of people are like, oh, at some point Din Djarin's gonna come back and give Grogu like Mandalorian armor, and that's happening here as well. He gives his Beskar spear in, because apparently those of the way don't like the idea of Beskar being used as weapons, which makes sense, I suppose. So he's turned that into like armor for Grogu, and he's established that he wants to go visit Grogu. So that's gonna be interesting. Like, hopefully it means that in season 3 of Mandalorian, although he says he's gonna go do it. Well, he ends the episode by saying he's gonna go visit his friend. So maybe what's gonna happen is that's what we see in season 3 Mandalorian. So it's like kind of like the Mandalorian's gonna be set between chapter 5 and chapter 6 of this, and then he comes back to do chapter 6 of this. So it's gonna be kind of out of order. But yeah, maybe it means we get to see, because I wasn't sure if we were gonna go see Grogu again in chapter 3, and part of me thinks we shouldn't really, because I think we should let the character kind of explore other narratives, you know, like not in a jump a shark kind of way, but in like let's see how his character reacts in a different environment. Like the character's going strong, and let's see, it doesn't have to be tied entirely to the Grogu, but it looks like that's where it's going to go, and that's fine, I guess. I think at some point we need to learn what happens to Grogu, because a lot of people are speculating, and it's going to drive us nuts. The whole pod racing scene, so he gets the Naboo Starfighter, his new Razor Crest, and I'm like, where's he get all this stuff? Like, he used to be, it's kind of like moving from a, you know, house to a car. Sure, cars, well, it's like moving, I guess it's like you're used to living in one of those truck camper vans, and then you have to live in a car, and it's like, where are you going to put all your stuff? I mean, I imagine, well, to them, most of his stuff got destroyed, so he hasn't got much stuff to get, but you see the guy who kind of, you know, gains stuff and keeps it. So I'm like, where is he going to put all this stuff? Where is he going to put his jetpack? Does he have like kind of a squidgish jetpack between his knees? And that's like people on buses with like, on coaches with, or planes with rucksacks. Does he put it in his companion seat, and then whenever he has someone riding with him, he's like, oh yes, watch your feet, my jetpack's there, don't set it off, it'll kill you probably. Is there like a boot? I guess there is storage area enough for Starfighter in case it crashes. But it was kind of fun seeing like pilot the ship, and I was expecting it to be a comic moment where everything like goes wrong, but actually it works kind of well. And then we get a nice kind of callback / remake, I guess, of the Starfighter, the police scene, the being stopped for going too fast kind of thing. Which, I mean, it's basically a redone bit from season 2 of Mandalorian, but it is one of the best bits, so I guess I can't really blame them. I think, yeah, surely like flying a starfighter really fast close to a commercial starfighter is going to worry a bunch of people. Like, oh my god, are we going to get boarded by pirates? Are we going to shut down? What's going on? So that was kind of nice, I guess. Well, aggressive backing track playing there. We get much more of, I forget her name now, but the technician who works in Mos Eisley. Like, she's in this much more. I guess she's kind of enjoying the ability to kind of be a bit more comedic and prominent, I suppose. Like in her previous 2 appearances. And, you know, she's an alright character. Yeah. And visually, it looks great. But most of these shows do. So those are my thoughts. I have a essay to write, so I think I should end it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you next time with what I used to remember my credits on earlier as well. I'll see you guys next time with whatever it is I'm doing next. Probably next week's episode of this, to be honest. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you then.